Hey guys, today we're going to be doing a tutorial on fabric tumblers, and for this your supply lists are going to be a tumbler, you're going to need Mod Podge, you're going to need a brush, you're going to need rubbing alcohol, tape, and of course your fabric. For this I usually buy the fat quarters from Walmart that you can get, or whatever you need. It doesn't matter how much you buy because you can cut it to your liking. So the first step that we're gonna do is we are going to take our alcohol in our tumbler and we're gonna make sure it's clear and there's nothing on it. Make sure it's clean of all oils and everything else. Okay, so once it's clean and everything's good, the next step, you're going to take your fabric and we're going to measure it. The way I like to do it is I like to take it, I like to place it, and then I like to wrap it around twice or one time so that it looks, you can't see any of the tumbler when it's wrapped, okay? So then I take it, and where this is folded at right here, I like to cut along that line. You want to make sure you have some extra space, and you'll see why in just a minute. So now once you get it cut like that, you're going to want to cut the excess off the top and the bottom. For the top, you want to leave a little bit of space so that way when you're applying your Mod Podge to it and everything, you can go up enough to where you can put the Mod Podge on it so it doesn't fray. So I'm just going to cut just like this, and with fabric it's better to be to have more than it is to have less, because you can always correct it but you can't fix an overcorrection. So then you can cut the bottom, and you want to make sure that the lines are even, because this is going to be your seam and you want your seams to match up perfectly. So to be perfect, you just really need this bottom one, because the top you can cut to whatever you need it to be cut to. And if you don't like to cover the bottom, which is what I'm going to do, you would need to cut it to about right here. So you would take it and you would just cut around. So because I don't like my cup to have any silver showing, I am going to make sure that it can fold all the way at the bottom like that, and then I'm going to twist it and cut, giving it a little bit of extra space again so I can make sure that we're good to go. Okay, so once you have that, get all your scraps out the way, and you're going to apply the Mod Podge. Okay, now to apply your Mod Podge, you're just going to take the brush and you're going to take the tumbler and you're going to generously apply it. Now remember, Mod Podge dries really fast, so you want to make sure to try and get all the Mod Podge on that you can. And a trick for this, and for any tumbler if you're going to use Mod Podge, is to apply some and then apply your fabric to it, or your glitter if you're going to do glitter. But so I will put it here, and this is where my seam is going to be, so I want to make sure that it's good. And then I'm just going to keep applying, and as you're doing it, you're going to want to make sure to pull it to make sure it gets on there before it's dry. So I use the table because that's easier for me. This is totally preference. It does not have to be, you don't have to use the table. You can hold it as you do it if that's what makes you happy. So this is just the first coat, but you want to make sure that it goes on good. And nice and tight. Again, your seam is going to be right here, so you want to make sure that we're nice and good. Taking an X-Acto knife to help cut the fabric in a minute, you'll see why, will help, but it's not necessary. Okay, so you'll sit here, and the good thing about the Mod Podge is before it dries, you can manipulate it in any way that you need. You can pull and make sure that it's on good and there's no wrinkles. And it's okay if you see the Mod Podge through, because remember, Mod Podge dries clear. Okay, so now that you Mod Podged all around, you're gonna make your seam. What I do is I take it, and this is where it ends. So I wanna make sure that I have a pretty seam. So I Mod Podge it just a little bit more to make sure it hardens. And I also do the top, because the top, you want it to not fray. So in the bottom also, I'm gonna cover my bottom, so I'll leave that like that. And then you fold it over. And with that, I'm going to then make my seam. So you get your tape, and you find where your seam is at or where you want it to be. I think I want mine right here. You see that's where it is, and so I'm gonna make it right here. So I am going to take the tape and I'm gonna put it a little bit past it because you don't want to cut it. And again, this is what I do. I Mod Podge it amongst the line to make it a little bit harder. Make sure it's hard all the way out. And this is where I use my X-Acto knife. You want to use the X-Acto knife, and then what we're gonna do is we're going to cut along this line. Try not to mess up. I pull on the fabric as I go, that way it's not being pulled every which way. So I go pretty slowly with this. You could use scissors, but I honestly just think that it is easier to use an X-Acto knife. So you see, just go slowly. I'm sorry if you can't see perfect. but you're gonna go slowly. I also usually go over at least one more time to make sure that I've gotten it all, so I'm not ripping fabric everywhere and it doesn't cause the frays. So go amongst the tape. That looks pretty good. I can see right here where I didn't get it. So you just go, and then you pull off your tape, and you also pull this. And like I said, now that you have that line though, you can see as you go to make sure that you got it. Lay it down. Ta-da. So then you're also going to have this under piece that you need to cut to make sure that it lays down the right way. And this is what you don't want. I'm showing you this so you know. Okay, so you're going to make sure that you get all the frays. Then we're going to pull it up, and then you're going to take this, and now you see it's lined up perfectly. You can't see any of the silver, and that is now your seam. So now you are going to do your Mod Podge layers. You're going to need to do about 4 or 5 with letting it dry in between. And you know, you just do it just like this. So you take it, and how quickly they dry is up to you, because it all goes how thick you put it on. So I worry about the bottom later, but you do want to have your fabric. I'm sorry, I didn't realize you couldn't see me. You want to have your fabric out at the top and at the bottom if you're going to not use it, if you're going to cut it. But you're going to apply it so that way it gets thick, gets hardened, and that way when it comes time to cutting it off, you can just cut it off, no problems. So just like that. You're going to do this 4 or 5 times with letting it dry in between. I usually let mine dry about 30 minutes. You want it to be hardened to the touch. Okay, so after your first layer of Mod Podge dries, it should look like this. It'll be clear again. And then we're just going to do this a total of 4 or 5 times. So I'm going to show you one more layer on how to do it, and then we'll be back. And you'll know it's dry and ready for your next layer. Like I said, when it's clear, and you just want to do thin layers. You don't want it on too thick because you are going to be epoxying over this, so the epoxy will also help. But you do want to make sure that you're good to go with it being adhered onto your tumbler, because you don't want it to move as you're doing the epoxy. So as you can see, that's my seam. It looks pretty good, especially with dark fabrics. You won't be able to tell, and if it's not a fabric that has a really noticeable pattern, you'll be able to pretty much line it up. And again, make sure you're getting it all and getting it to the top a little bit past where your lip of the cup is. That way when you cut it off, it'll be easy and it won't be frayed. So make sure it's pulled up, and then just pull it up. And then after this round, should be your second coat of epoxy, of Mod Podge. You should be able to take the X-Acto knife and cut it after this second coat dries. Okay, so after the cup is dried, after you've gotten it on 4 times, you'll know because it is completely clear, it's time to epoxy it. So what I like to do is I have the tape on my football, or you can tape it around the rim. It just makes it easier. And I just squeeze it on there, make sure it's even. Now the turner I got from Micah Ford, and you can purchase them from her. She's on the page, so you'll be able to purchase from her if you have any questions. So next is the fun part. This is epoxy. This time I'm going to be using art resin because that's what Holly's got me into. So we'll be using that. This is what it looks like. It's part A's and part B. It doesn't say A and B like most other ones do, but it's the same. So part A and part B. And you want to make sure that when you do this, you mix it completely in a perfect ratio of 1:1. So for this, you're going to need your epoxy, a thing to mix it in, your measuring cups that I've already pre-measured, parts A and B, a mixing stick, and if you want, this is completely up to you. I love glitter, so I'll be adding some of Backfist Customs glitter. This is Winter Frost. So to do this, you're going to take part A and you're going to pour it into the cup. So part A, make sure you get all out, and then you're going to mix part B. So what I like about art resin that I found completely different, I smell nothing. I am out in the garage doing it, so I have plenty of open space. The garage door is open, but I don't smell anything, which I was using Pro-Marine, and I do use Pro-Marine, but it bothers me. So now you want to make sure you mix it, and you want to mix slowly. You don't want to mix fast. You can use a heating gun to help you heat it up a little bit if needed. If not, just mix it. Make sure you get all the air bubbles out. There's no bubbles in it, and give it a couple of minutes to set. So I'm gonna mix it all up, and then I am going to put a little bit of glitter in it to give it a little bit of a shimmer to my epoxy. Just a little bit. I like Winter Frost because it's clear and it gives off different shimmers, and it's cool. I like it. It's different. Of course, I love all of Bruce's glitter. And with this, like this cup itself, you can add whatever you wanted to it, honestly, and it would give it a whole different look. Okay, so as you can see, it's mixed. There's no bubbles. My cup is on the turner, and it is ready to start. So what we do, we just pour it on there and start laying it down. So this is going to give it that shimmer that we really want. Because glitter is life, right? So with the epoxy, you pour it on and you just continue to run your fingers over it. Make sure it's all filled in the way it needs to be. And I usually do this for about 5 or 6 minutes. It just helps me make sure it's all clear, make sure there's no holes, no spots, no nothing like that. As you can see, the glitter is giving it just the perfect amount of shimmer, so I can still see my design. I probably will not put a decal on it. So now for the bottom, I take it, I put it on my finger. This is what I do. I found it easier this way, and I just smooth it on just like that. It makes it easier for me that way. So just keep going just like that. So now with the extra epoxy, I like to make the keychains and things. So keychains, earrings, I'll buy the molds. I get them everywhere from Walmart to Amazon. And I'll take my leftover epoxy. As you see, I have a lot. So I'll usually take it, and this is my Walmart mold. And since it's almost 4th of July, I'll just pour the epoxy in there and make different types of stars and everything. I'm only gonna do one, and I'm gonna let that sit. So then when it's done, I can put a keychain thing to it and it'll be done. So that's it. Your epoxy, it's gonna take about 8 hours on the turner. I usually let it stay a little bit longer than 8 hours, usually 8 or 9. And then if there's any bumps or anything that I need to fix, I'll fix it and then put another coat. If not, this one coat epoxy should be good. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions, please let me know. I will be making another list for what you need, and I will put that in the description. Thanks, y'all. Have a great night.